What is up, brothers? So, back with another video. It is windy as fuck outside, so don't mind the wind, but today we're talking about how to make fat storage biologically, I say impossible, but it's more realistically inefficient on a bulk, because if you're in a calorie surplus, you can bias all those calories towards muscle growth instead of fat storage, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video. So stick around, watch the whole thing. I guarantee you there's some stuff that you've never heard about in fitness before. Like, I can guarantee it, because I've been in the gym for almost 5 years at this point, and there's some stuff that I've learned in the past like 3 months that I've started applying and made a huge difference in my training, in my progress, everything. So yeah, let's get into it. These two pictures right here, so this was taken in July of 2025, and this was in December, so this is 5 month difference. And as you can see, I'm pretty lean in both pictures. In this one, I've been bulking. I started the bulk in September, so I've been bulking for 3 months here. And then here I was just like, this was like peak shred in the summer, where I was super lean, but I was not as big as I am now, as I am in this picture. So let's get into the actual presentation. Fucking even take some notes down. Like, I guarantee you there's gonna be some stuff that you haven't heard of before. So let's get into it. So this is all about nutrient partitioning. You must understand how this works, because this really determines where the calories that you're eating are actually going and where they're being stored. So if you have good nutrient partitioning, as you can see here, you're storing more calories and nutrients as muscle, because you can bias it towards muscle, which I'll get into the specifics of how to do it, instead of fat cells. And then if you have poor nutrient partitioning, it's going to go more to fat instead of muscle. So basically, the whole premise of this topic is mastering your nutrient partitioning, which I'll get into it, to maximize the amount of muscle that you're storing and growing from the same amount of calories that you're eating. So two different people can have the same diet, but if they have a few different things in place, then one will have poor nutrient partitioning and then the other will have good nutrient partitioning, which makes the biggest difference, especially when you're bulking. So yeah, let's keep going. So number one, this is the most important thing. Insulin sensitivity is king. So if you don't know what insulin is, it's a storage hormone. So basically, when your insulin is high, you're storing nutrients and you're stopping fat burning. And basically, everything that comes in gets stored as something, like either to muscle or to fat or to your liver as well. If your liver glycogen is not full, then you can store it in your liver as well. But basically, it like opens your cells to absorb nutrients. So then insulin sensitivity decides where the storage occurs. So basically, the more sensitive you are to the hormone insulin, the less insulin you need to produce to get the same result. And if your muscles are more insulin sensitive, then they're going to prefer to store more nutrients than your fat cells, basically. So how to increase it when you're bulking? So basically, you want to do some daily movements. Some zone 2 cardio is really good, some daily steps, and then post-meal walking. This is really good and really overlooked by a lot of people. So especially when you have a high carb meal, you spike insulin pretty high and your blood glucose is pretty high. So then if you go for a walk, it helps balance the blood glucose and you don't have to release as much insulin to clear the blood glucose and do the same amount of work for clearing the blood glucose without as much insulin, basically. And then also heavy compound lifts, and then avoid constant snacking. So if you're eating really consistently, like throughout the day, like if you're always digesting and munching on something, especially if it's carbs, then you're spiking insulin throughout the whole day, which for a lot of reasons is a bad thing, because number one, you're going to be blocking fat burning, because when insulin is high, you can't really burn fat. You don't release fat cells, because that's what insulin does as well. And then, as well as if you're always constantly spiking insulin throughout the whole day, you don't give your body some time to, like reset and like desensitize yourself to insulin, then it's not going to have the same effect as if you were to eat distinct meals throughout the day. So what I recommend for most people is 3 to 4 distinct meals throughout the day, and I really never snack on anything. Like, it's very rare that I'll snack. Like, I use food as a fuel source for either training or recovery, and I'm not really using it to just have pleasure in my mouth. Like, it sounds really fucking weird, but yeah, it's not something that you should be like using as comfort food. Like, food and nutrition is, meant to be used for what you're going to do throughout the day. So always have high protein and then carbs when needed, and just have those distinct meals like when you actually need them. And like, if you're just, it depends on your goals, but if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you want to get the best physique you can, best physique possible, and gain muscle without gaining fat. So if you're part of that group, then this definitely applies to you. So that's number 1. Insulin sensitivity is king. Number 2 is timing your carbs around the muscle demand. So basically, I kind of touched on this on the last one, but you want to use carbs as a tool for your training and for your recovery. So carbs, as you can see, they spike insulin, which, like I said, is a nutrient storage, which we want when muscles are sensitive. So think of it like when you're going to train, like pre-workout, you're going to have muscle demand, so you want to spike insulin to prevent muscle breakdown, because that's another thing that insulin does. It has a lot of different roles that once you understand them, you can really use insulin at the right times. And I mean, just think of carbohydrates as basically spiking insulin. So if you want to spike insulin, you want to have some fast digesting carbs, and you will have the biggest insulin spike. So you can use this. I really recommend for everyone just pre and post workout. And if you have more training later in the day, it just depends on exactly what your training style is, which is kind of why I think the customized plans that I make are the best option, because nothing is cookie cutter in fitness. If you think everything is the same for everyone, then you're just completely mistaken, because everyone has different schedules, different training styles, different training plans, different goals with their training. Some people like to do more endurance work, cardio. Some people just like to go to the gym, which I have my opinions on, which I can get into in a little bit. But basically, for most people, it's just pre and post workout, have your carbs, because you want to spike insulin before the lift. It's going to, like I said, prevent muscle breakdown. And then after the lift, you're going to want to spike insulin to shuttle all those nutrients that you're eating in your post-workout meal, which is, by the way, the most crucial meal in all of fitness and all of making progress in your gym journey, is your post-workout meal. If you get that right, then you're gonna fucking kill the game. If you don't get that right, then you're gonna be stalling your progress for years, like I was in my previous life. Not really, but yeah. So spike insulin pre and post workout when muscles are sensitive. So post training, when glycogen is low. So basically, when you train, when you're in the gym, you're using muscle glycogen as energy. So that's basically what your muscles run on, is the glycogen that you have stored in the muscles. So when glycogen is low, you want to have the carbs to refeed the glycogen, and you want to focus mostly on glucose. Another mistake I used to make was really focusing on a lot of fruits and honey, which I'll get into in one of the last slides here, is the mistake with using a ton of fructose, because it only goes to the liver, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but we'll get to that part when we get there. So then last point here is carbs outside of workout window is biased towards fat storage. So basically, if you don't have any demand for training and you're spiking insulin, you're eating carbs, that is when they are biased towards fat storage. That's why some people say that carbs make you fat. Those are people that are sedentary, they don't really work out, they don't go to the gym, they don't do any exercise, which for them, yeah, carbs are not beneficial at all. They don't really serve any purpose for someone that's sedentary. But for you and me, we're going to the gym very consistently, so you want to use carbs at the right time. So basically, just pre and post workout, and you will be good. Next thing is timing fats away from your workouts. So dietary fat is easily stored when insulin is high. So basically, when you're eating carbs pre and post workout, you're spiking insulin, and you do not want to have high fats, high dietary fats in those same meals with your high carbs. So basically, when, like I said, insulin is a storage hormone, so fats and carbs together is going to bias more dietary fats towards fat storage, basically. So simple rules you can follow. It's called the Randall cycle. If you want to look this up, do some more research on it. It's very interesting. I only learned about this like maybe a month ago, genuinely. So simple rules is high carb meals want to have lower fat, and those are the pre and post workout meals. And then outside of that window, so away from your workouts, you want to have higher fat meals and then keep the carbs lower. So basically, if you have high carbs, lower fats. If you have lower fats, higher carbs. Pretty simple. Next thing is training creates a calorie sink into the muscle. So basically, when you train, when you go to the gym, when you lift, when you have a good workout, you're creating muscle damage, glycogen depletion, and then increased glucose uptake for 24 to 48 hours. So what this means is when you train, when you like have a good workout, then your muscles are super sensitive and super responsive to any nutrients that are coming in. So that's why the post-workout meal is so effective, because right after you train, there's some more biological things. There's this thing called the GLUT4, which is glucose transporter 4. So what that is basically, it's a transporter that's inside the muscle cell, and then when you have muscle contraction, it goes outside of the membrane and into the bloodstream, and then it allows your muscles to absorb glucose from the bloodstream. So basically, when you train, you're absorbing more nutrients automatically through training. So that's when you want to have the majority of your nutrients and your calories, because you're most sensitive to everything that's coming in, so you can bias it all towards muscle growth. Instead of, let's say you have most of your nutrients when you're not training, like let's say you don't lift for 3 days, and there's no muscle sink or calorie sink into the muscle because there's been no contraction and there's no demand for muscle growth, right? So if you have a ton of, different calories, different nutrients, it's going to be biased more towards fat storage because there's no demand for muscle uptake and there's no glucose transporting nutrients into the muscle cells. So basically, hard training equals calories get absorbed by the muscle. So when you train, muscles are most sensitive, I covered this, to absorbing nutrients and calories. Basically, like I said, just train to make your muscles sensitive to food that's coming in. Very simple. Number 5 is keep daily activity high. So NEAT, if you don't know what this is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is basically the energy that you burn that's not doing like specific workouts. So it's basically just like the things that you do throughout your day, like maybe walking around and just like breathing, stuff like that. It's like the most like basic survival things that burn calories. So this does control your insulin sensitivity, which was number 1. So basically, like being more active throughout the day, like going on little walks, standing up from your desk if you work sitting down, just going on short little like movement walks, stuff like that. Because if you're sedentary, then you're going to be biasing way more of your calories towards fat gain. So another things you can do is, well, this is not NEAT, but zone 2 cardio is huge for not only just burning calories, also insulin sensitivity, and then there's so many other benefits that are outside of the scope of this video, but I'm definitely going to make way more videos on the benefits of zone 2 cardio. I'm such a big believer in doing zone 2 cardio. I think it actually improves muscle gain by doing low intensity zone 2 cardio through a few different mechanisms that I can explain in a few future videos. So I would definitely recommend doing some zone 2 cardio and then some short walks after your meals. So I did cover this before as well. Basically, especially on the high carb meals, just go for a walk. And these all increase your insulin sensitivity. So just add these two things. Don't be sedentary. That's one of the biggest things I preach as well, is just always try to get some movement in, even if it's just walking. Just don't sit down all day. Don't lay down all day. It's never going to be beneficial for you. So next one is the size of your surplus. This is the most common thing that people look at when you're trying to do like a lean bulk and not gain fat. So what I recommend, as you can see here, is 200 to 300 calories to bulk. So massive surpluses overwhelm muscle storage capacity. So basically the easiest way to explain this is you have a muscle storage capacity. So it doesn't matter how many calories you eat. If you can eat a ton of different a ton of more calories, but you're not going to build a ton more muscle, like so much more muscle, just because you're eating way more. Like there's a limit to how much muscle you can gain in a certain time period. So we just want to adjust the calories to, like accordingly to how much muscle you can really gain. So also muscle protein synthesis caps pretty quickly. It's basically the same thing. And then excess energy spills into fat. So you can have, if you're doing like an 1,000 calorie surplus, you're not going to be gaining, you might gain a little bit more muscle, but the ratio of fat gain is just going to be just not worth it at all. Like you're just going to look like shit, feel like shit. And then the fatter you are, actually the less muscle you can build, because you're less insulin sensitive. You have lower testosterone, because body fat decreases your testosterone and converts it more into estrogen through aromatase. So there's no benefit in having a high body fat, and that's why you want to stay lean when we're bulking. This is the main thing of this video. So simple rules is 200 to 300 calorie surplus. You could go a little lower, like it just depends on your exact goals, and that's kind of what I teach in my program. Like people that work with me directly, like everyone has different goals obviously, so it's really beneficial to know what the specifics would be for you. And that's, like I said, like cookie cutter plans never work. Like you could get results on the fundamentals, but if you want to like actually have the best plan for you, and you just find something online or like some random YouTube video, it's not going to be the best for you specifically. Just, it never will be, because everyone is different. So yeah, so 200 to 300 calorie surplus for most people, and then slow weight gain. So this is like the target range that you want to hit per week. So I like to do like 2 pounds per month is like a good gain of weight. I think it's pretty decent. So if you're gaining fast, it's likely fat storage. Basically, like you don't want to be impatient with your bulk. I used to do the same thing. I used to be super impatient and just eat a fuck ton of calories, because I wanted to get like, oh, I want to get stronger like now. But in the long run, it's just going to fuck you up. You're going to gain a ton of fat. You're going to look like shit. You're going to regret it. And you're going to wish that you took the slow route, because time passes anyways. Time is always going to pass. And if you can do things the right way, it doesn't matter how you feel, you just get the shit done that you need to get done, then you're going to get the best results. And then you're going to thank yourself in the future for doing things that you know you needed to do. So little side note there. Next thing, this is the last slide. So the glucose, or the fructose lie. This is what I was talking about earlier. So fructose replenishes liver glycogen only and not muscle. So basically what this means for your training is when you eat fructose, like fruits and honey, they do have some glucose, so I'm not going to say they're bad, but they're not going to feed or replenish muscle glycogen, which is what you're using for your training in the gym. So it literally has no effect on like your recovery, fructose. So if the majority of your carbs are coming from fruit and honey, which I know is a big thing in like the animal-based like diets, which I used to do a ton. Like this is something I learned pretty recently as well. Like I've learned so much stuff recently that obviously I want to share with everyone making these videos and with my clients as well. So I think it's one of the best things and makes me super fulfilled to do this. But yes, the fructose lie is something that's most people don't even know about. Like, most people don't know the difference between glucose and fructose. And I used to do this exact same thing. I would just spam a ton of fruits and honey, like pre and post workout, and then sometimes have like rice and potatoes, which I think those two are the best carb sources by far. And you can use them differently depending on what you're doing, because rice is a high glycemic index carb, so it's going to be faster digesting and spike insulin higher and faster. And then potatoes are a lower glycemic index carb, spiking insulin lower and slower. Quick little rhyme there. But yeah, you can use them differently depending on your training. But yeah, basically the whole point of this slide is just to give you awareness that you should not be prioritizing fruit and honey and fructose. So it just goes to the liver glycogen, and when you have full liver glycogen, you're basically just, everything that's excess is going to be biased towards fat storage. So if you want to eliminate fat storage, you don't want to eat a ton of fructose when you don't need it, because you really don't need that much, fructose in your day. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying never eat fruits and honey, which obviously you should, just depending on, again, your style of training, what you're doing throughout the day, the timing of it. Because if you're like overnight, if you obviously, like, no one eats overnight unless you're like Ronnie Coleman, doing like waking up 4 a.m. trying to get down some shakes. But you're depleting your liver glycogen if you're fasting, so that's a good time to have fructose, is when you don't eat for a while. So every day you should have some fructose. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it should not be the priority again. So rules is fruit limited. Animal-based diets have this wrong, like I said. And then I would bias your fructose post-workout, because it is good for like uptaking, like when you're working out, obviously you're using glycogen. You're using mostly muscle glycogen for your lifting, and then some liver glycogen as well. So I would have this post-workout when you're most depleted from liver glycogen to, replenish that as well. So yeah, that's basically the whole thing. And then I would focus on glucose. I'm going to make another video on the difference between fructose and glucose. I think it's a really overlooked topic that a lot of people can benefit from, especially if you think that like the animal-based diet, like just eat meat, fruit, and honey is good. I'm not saying it's bad. Like, I know people have had a ton of good results from that, and I used to do that, the same diet as well. But if your goal is to maximize your training, your progress in the gym, get the best physique possible in the shortest amount of time, then you want to be prioritizing glucose, which is, like I said, rice and potatoes are the best sources of those. So that is the end of this presentation. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a comment below if you have any questions, like always. And then if you do want to work with me, I'm going to leave a link in the description of the video. So there's going to be a link to schedule a call with me, so we can see like what the plan would be for you specifically. And then I'll also leave my Instagram as well. So on my Instagram, I post short form videos like talking about similar things, and then my stories as well is me just like sharing what I do throughout the day. So I'll leave those there for you guys if you want to check those out. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm gonna wrap it up here. See you guys in the next one.